As Katie said, this is one of the newer awards. In fact, we're going to today honor Larry Kirk as the Outstanding Research Mentor, and he is the second recipient of this award. Larry has been a professor of chemistry and biochemistry at Chico State for 3 decades. He has worked with students inside and outside the classroom to encourage their interest in research and learning. He has pushed them, praised them, and then set new goals for them. And these students return the praise, citing Larry as the person who made the difference in their education. I'm pleased to introduce Larry Kirk, who will talk for a few minutes about teaching and working with students. Larry, will you come up here?
Yay, Larry.
Thanks, Sandra. Katie Milo asked that I talk about 2 different things. One was the effect of mentoring students on advancement in my career, and also what we do in teaching research that's different from a typical classroom. So the first thing, before I get started, I wanted to mention one thing is in the 30 years, almost 30 years that I've been here and worked with over 200 students, I've always had collaborations with other faculty. And I would strongly recommend people to collaborate. It's been the highlight of my career. For 25 years, I've collaborated with Larry Hanne, sitting over here in microbiology.
Yay, Larry.
And also, is Katie Silman here? Is she? Anyway, for 12 or 13 years, I've collaborated with Katie Silman, who's in nutrition and food sciences. And more recently, a little bit with Joe Green in mechanical engineering mechatronics. And is it green industrial technology? I don't know the new term now. So they have all been valuable colleagues, and my work with students really is dependent on working with them. As far as advancement in my career, most of you don't remember a former provost by the name of Jerry Stairs. Yeah. Remember the 3-legged stool, right? Professional growth, teaching, and service. Well, the 3-legged stool really depends on professional growth around here. It turns out most of your promotions, that's the hardest hurdle to get through. And in art and in science, we need publications, grants, or presentations at meetings, national meetings. To get those done requires a lot of hands-on, and the students have done all the work. They're the ones in the lab getting the work and getting the results. So it's really a self-interest to involve students in research because it does advance our careers. Other than the obvious self-interest, working with students is really a pleasure. They really push you to be in the top of your game, to be on top of the literature. There's nothing more embarrassing to find out that they know more than you do, or you didn't keep up. I mean, if you look at successful people, embarrassment is a real driving force. Can you think about all the times you embarrassed, you never forget it, right? It's really, so that's a big push. Also, students bring a lot to the table. They have their enthusiasm, excitement for doing research. Curiosity is very contagious. So I have one example, although it's not maybe one of the best ones, but current research that we're doing has to do with taking industrial, agricultural waste, food waste, to make a biodegradable plastics. So it's very sustainability. So the first project that we work with is working with waste, beer waste from Sierra Nevada. So Kevin Parsons was one of our first students. And so I described the research to Kevin. So he has this cup and this gleam comes in his eye. He says, "You mean we're going to use beer waste to make a plastic where we can drink beer out of it?" Really a Zen moment, the circle of life. So it is really fun working with students. So besides their excitement, often they have good ideas, surprisingly. And the more mature students really have ideas you never thought about. Often graduate students have better ideas. So Larry will probably remember that one of the first students we worked with actually worked with Don Alger a number of years ago. And his idea was, there are probably some bacteria out there that can degrade some of our local pesticides. And why don't we just look at the soil outside Holt Hall? Well, it turns out we discovered some local bacteria that degraded pesticides, and Larry, Hanne, and I spun off 15 years of research basically with that one idea of one student. So it is amazing how useful sometimes they can be. So finally, students graduate and carry on, and since I've been here long enough, we have a number of former students that have various positions, and you develop a network, and they can help you in your career, sometimes collaboration, you can email and call them for advice. So they can turn into long-term relationships that are very valuable. So quickly, the other aspect that Katie wanted me to talk about is what we do in our kind of research. Larry and I have worked a number of years with kind of a plan where we're designing it like industry research or a large lab at a major university, which is really a group approach to research. We've always had quite a few students. Some semesters we've had over 12 or 15 students. You can imagine directing that many. So our approach to the problem is we attack it from different angles. Everyone has a special individual project, but there's a group focus. So that requires us to have weekly meetings, which are fairly formal, where they're used to kind of classroom situations, but trying to get them involved in research and independent research is a big barrier for them. So this weekly research meeting is really the key to our approach, where we get together, talk about research, and they communicate the results. So that's kind of a part of our research, and our idea is to get them exposed to basically what's called the research science culture. In other words, how to conduct research in the lab, how to design experiments, how to evaluate the results, and how to communicate those results. And so just to finish, communication has been more important to us lately, and what we push in communication, even with the first several weeks, is to get them to develop an elevator talk. You guys familiar with elevator talk? That's the idea. If you get in an elevator and your boss, say you're working for a company, or somebody says, can you explain what you're doing and going up to the 4th floor? So what you have to develop is the ability in 2 or 3 minutes to clearly explain what you're doing to your peers, someone that might not be involved in the project. And when we first started this, it was amazing how few people could do that very well. So that's how they start out with communication. In science, we really need to have more communication skills. So eventually, we have goals that to at least do poster presentations, and if they're lucky, we can do those at national meetings, and that's a really good experience to go to a national meeting, and then hopefully publications. But that's kind of our approach, and I can say working with students, I've developed lifelong friendships. They're kind of like my family, and it's been the highlight of my career at Chico State. Thank you.
I want to say congratulations to Larry. I had the opportunity of hearing some of those elevator speeches last summer, and they really are impressive. And if you have a chance to watch students who are actively engaged in research, working with faculty members, then tell other people about it, especially people like me who come out of a humanities background and they're dealing with science. I thought it was incredibly useful for them to be able to communicate that, and good for me to understand the kind of work that they were doing. So congratulations.
The next set of awards